shirt with a planet.
Hi, everybody, and greetings today. And we're going to have a nice conversation today with three of us. And this is the Dave Emmons and Tom Althouse show. We've done a Dave and Tom show before, and Tom Althouse has been my co host in the past. So he's going to be a co host today. And we're covering a little bit different topic. We're covering the supernatural and the ETs and things of that nature with a special guest today, Spencer Hau, and we'll be getting to him real quick. But you, if you follow us, then we hope that you keep following us because we'll always come up with different topics. We'll probably get back into current events next week or sometime, but we just been holding off because the election and the holidays and all this other stuff. But we're not giving up, are we, Tom?
Never.
Yeah, Tom, I'm a book writer, and also I do the show, and I have played music in the past. Tom Althouse is a screenplay writer. He also wrote he had a screenplay called Immortals. They took it from him, and the Cabal did, and they made it into the Matrix with Keanu Reeves. Everybody's familiar with that, and he's fighting that now. He's got a documentary crew that's making a documentary about that situation. And Tom Althouse is also an actor, and he's worked in Hollywood, Disney World, and with I guess that one religious group, you
Yeah,
can
the religious right. Yeah. Yeah.
the religious right group, and so he's been around, and that's why we got him on today with Spencer Howell, because Spencer Howell's had a background in certain things himself. Now, Spencer, on his day job, he's a chiropractor and he's a life coach. And I was just joking a while ago that he crunches bones and he tells people to poop or get off the pot. So that's not really what he does as a life coach. He teaches people. I guess he'll tell you more about that. But a life coach is somebody who helps people out. I was just trying to be funny there. I don't want to be, take away from that type of teaching. That's great because people come to him for help and advice more than likely. He's working on a manuscript, and he's a survivor of Montauk, MKULTRA, Monarch, and SSP. And we'll be talking to him about that. And let's introduce Spencer Hau. Where do you want to start? I guess it's in your early life. And Tom, just jump in anytime.
Sure. Yeah. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Um, so I actually, I guess I'm a newcomer to the whole scene. I met Misha Johnson over at UFO Con about, was it last March of 2021? And I approached her with, I was doing my basically advertising my chiropractic services at this UFO con. I just do massage therapy and making the rounds. I'd like to network, just saying hello to everybody. I said hello to Misha. I didn't know who she was until the end of the conference. She gave a speech and shared with everybody her story that she went through, and something about it was like, okay, I need to talk to this woman. This sounds very familiar to me for some reason. So I talked to her afterwards, and I shared with her that, when I was 4 years old, I went through satanic ritualistic abuse. My nursery school teacher um, basically put me through this horrifying ritual. And she pulled me aside, gave me a little Dixie cup, said, drink this. I said, I held it in my hand and I could feel like there's something else in this little Dixie cup. I said, what'd you put in here? I'm not drinking this. She said, it's just water, drink it. I said, it's not just water. You put something into it. I know it. I could feel it. And she's like, just drink it. It's water. And I heard this telepathic thought in my mind: respect your teacher. Do as your teacher says. You respect your teacher. So I thought, okay, yeah, I respect my teacher. Drink the water, and she says. So I drink the water. Next thing I know, I'm waking up on a table in this underground bunker with these people surrounding me wearing these dark robes, and they're all chanting something. And there's a man to my right foot and a woman to my left foot, as well as people on either side of me. And this woman picks up this dagger and brings it over her head and starts going like this with it. I wake up and I realize this woman's trying to kill me. So I sat up and looked at her right in her eyes, and something shifted in me. It's like I left my body. I didn't really leave my body. My third eye opened. I'll just put it that way. And I can see her spirit. And I started talking to her spirit. Everybody's spirit is an egg of light. That's who we truly are. We're not these bodies.
Right.
And so I see her spirit kind of hovering behind her body. And I said, I do not give you permission to do that. I kept telepathically sending that to her. I do not give you permission to do that, because I knew that nothing in this physical reality can happen if it did not yet happen in the spiritual plane. It has to happen there first, and then it happens here, because the physical world is just a manifestation. So by blocking the spirit, the body cannot do what the spirit does not do. So if I don't give her spirit permission, the body cannot do it. So I knew that, and I just kept telling her, spirit, I do not give you permission to do this. I do not give you permission to do this. You do not have my permission to do this. Over and over and over again. I looked at her right in her eyes, just kept sending her that. And she was standing like this. And her body would just freeze. And I just kept looking right at her in her eyes, just, I do not allow you to do this. So she gave up, and she put the dagger down, and then I sat back down. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And what she did was she talked to the man who was at my right foot to her left. So she turns to her left, says, I don't know. He's like stopping me from doing this. I can't do it. He's stopping me. He's doing something to me. I can't do it. He has some powers. And then the man said, yeah, he does seem to have some type of powers. Let's bring him in. And then he put his hands on my liver. He leaned forward and put his hands on my liver, and then I passed out. And then the next thing I know, I'm waking up in the back seat of a car on the way back to my nursery school. And I look at the people driving. It was my nursery school teacher in the front passenger seat. I was really groggy, and I said, well, where am I? What happened? Where'd we go? And she turns around and says, oh, we went on a field trip, and you got tired and you fell asleep. So I just decided to bring you back. The rest of the class is already back at school. And I said, oh, okay. And then I was like, wait a second, that doesn't sound right. You did something to me. You took me somewhere and did something to me. And then I got infuriated. I just started yelling at her. What did you do to me? What did you do to me? You took me somewhere. What did you do to me? She turns around and says, Spencer, calm down. You just fell asleep. What did you do to me? I didn't just fall asleep. You did something to me. And she turned around and looked at me right in my eyes and started saying, it's just your imagination. 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 Over and over and over again. And I went into this kind of trance, and once I repeated the statement back, it's just my imagination. She goes, good. And then she turned around and then looked face forward. And I sat down, I'm like, it's not my imagination. Who the hell is this woman? I said, no, it's not my imagination. You did something to me. She goes, Spencer, you better shut up. You better calm down. We're approaching school, and, don't say anything to the other kids. And I'm like, why would you tell me not to say anything to the other kids? That means you did do something to me. So I ran into the school, and the other kids, they're all there. I was like, this is a little odd. How could they have gone on a field trip and be back and playing and everything already? This isn't adding up. And one of the kids came up to me and said, Spencer, where'd you go? You've been gone for hours. And I said, they took me somewhere and did something to me. They gave me a Dixie cup. If they pull you aside and give you a Dixie cup, don't drink it. They put something in there. They're going to do something to you. And the girl was like, what? You're crazy. They're not going to do anything. They're our teachers. They don't do anything. You're making that up, Spencer. I said, oh, you think I'm making it up? So then I went into the corner of the playground, which is in the back of the school. And I stopped talking to people. From that day forward, everybody became like, I just had this, piss off kind of attitude. And the kids came back to me, weeks later and saying, Spencer, they remember when you told me that they gave you a Dixie cup and did something? They did that to me too. They did something to me. I said, I remember what you told me when I told you. You told me that I'm just making it up and I'm crazy. Well, you're just making it up and you're crazy, and fuck you, I said to her. And I just had a nasty attitude after that. I became really resentful. So anyway, I shared this story with Misha. And how I recall the story was I did some healing work with a Native American shaman called Coyote Laughing. And that's when I did a shamanic journey specific for this, because I thought I was molested and, or raped or something, which I was, but not at that time. And so we did a shamanic journey around that specific time period. And that's how I was able to recall this incident. It doesn't bother me to talk about. I don't get upset. I'm not like angry. I'm not wired, all traumatized right now. But it was the phrase, let's bring him in. That's what got my attention, and I always wanted to know what they did. So my whole life I've been on this quest of like, what what is the occult? What are these rituals about? Started getting into Aleister Crowley stuff and Alice A. Bailey and um, something Bennett, and they have all these books, Book of Thelema, and all these Western occult books. And I started reading all this stuff about it. And actually, that's part of the Monarch training. So I had a kind of an idea of like what blood magic is, and always knew about the reptilians and things like that ruling our world, but I wanted to know what they did to me and what they brought me into. So Misha said, well, hey, yeah, she just knew. She knew.
Yeah,
She
Misha Johnson for the
yeah.
public out there. She's got an abduction group, Tom, the support group, and it's out of Vegas. And I've met her, know her from I guess 10 years ago, and she's a very nice lady. And she goes through these. I wanted to share with have Tom share if he is familiar with anything that went on with Spencer. Did you go through the same thing with this group that you were with?
Well, I had the molesting, and what happened was when I was at college, I remember being on my bed alone in the dorm room, and I felt this. It was the one time I felt terror and horror. I felt myself being pulled from my ankles down off the bed, and then everything went black, and it was like that feeling of a rush of pull. And I remember seeing figures. I never talked about it. And it's interesting that all these things happened after that. All these ideas for tech, writing, all this stuff happened. And that's when I got the lumps everywhere, all over my body. There's lumps everywhere.
Well,
So,
Spencer, yeah, Spencer, did you have any of that, like being drug out of bed and any physical, effects afterwards, like Tom just said he had?
I didn't have any physical effects. It was more psychological. I got into this whole thing from healing. I wanted to heal trauma, and I thought it was PTSD and CPTSD. I got really into studying CPTSD and approached it from that point of view. And the shamanic journey only covered that one incident. So Misha, we did a hypnotic regression, and that's when I was able to recall everything. They did take me when I was 7, when I was 8, when I was 12, when I was 16. When I was 7 and 8, and I believe at other times they took me at nighttime. I don't exactly remember, but I just have these flash memories, like really faint memories of that. These men in black, basically, not Men in Black the movie, but they're wearing black uniforms, which indicates CIA. And they have these silent helicopters. They took my whole family, but I never woke up with any physical marks or anything like that. I remember through my junior high, early high school years, I would see marks on my arm, and I didn't know where they came from. I was like, I didn't fall, because I grew up skateboarding. Like I kind of never really fit into the culture, so I took up skateboarding and was like a rebel. So I fell a lot. It's what happens when you skateboard and you fall on concrete. It's great, but these kind of marks, these little X marks, it was odd that I would have them. I'd find them on my arm.
Now, was this part of the Montauk experiment that you're talking about? You have listed here that was.
Well, when I was 5, that's when they took me into Montauk.
Okay, all right.
Took me out of kindergarten.
MKULTRA. I guess there's so many things that we need to talk about. I guess I'm just trying to speed this up because I want people to know everything that you went through. MKULTRA. I know Tom knows a little bit about that. And what did you go through with that? Could you tell us?
Me?
No, well, yeah, Spencer's starting, and I guess you can.
Yeah, we're both waiting, so we're like,
yeah. I should have said that. Yeah, we're gonna throw it back and forth here, just like you wanted the time. We're just gonna relax. Yeah. Okay, Spencer, tell us a little about MKULTRA, and then Tom will tell us what he knows about it. I know we have a mutual friend who's been involved in MKULTRA, maybe a couple of them. So could you tell us what happened to you in MKULTRA, Spencer?
Well, I don't remember if they took me to Langley or Montauk, what came first, but I just remember Langley has an underground base and it was very clean. Montauk was filthy and dirty. They in both places they put me in cages and fed me canned dog food.
Mm.
Um, the cleaner place, they had basically guessing what's on the cards. They'd have a little wall up, and I had to guess what's on the card and what comes next. They would electrically shock me through my fingertips, and that's when I got infuriated because I didn't know what was going on, and I got angry, and I sent the electricity back into the machine and blew up the machine, and sent the electricity to them and electrocuted the people. And and then that's when they beat me up, and they beat me to death and then revived me. They put me in a regen tank, and they did that multiple times and drowned me multiple times. Um, at Montauk, we did levitating, telekinetic stuff, and time travel, and we opened portals with their minds. Um, Children that didn't make it were fed to Dracos. There's an underground base that they don't talk about that goes farther down in Montauk, and there's a portal down there that the Dracos use. And there's a room where he would just throw the kids that didn't make. He showed me. He walked me to a room and said, "This is what happens if you don't want to cooperate or if you fail." And he took a kid and threw him in the room, and the Draco just ate him right in front of me. And I looked at it like, "Holy shit!"
Wow.
This is like I don't want. So from that point forward, I developed this like I don't want that to happen to me. So they trained me also at Langley. They trained me in psionic killing, psychic warfare. So they trained me how to create heart attacks in dogs, and I'd kill dogs with my mind. I had to summon all this hatred because I love dogs, but then all of a sudden it was like me or the dog, and it's hard. I don't feel good about what I did, but it's the training that they put me through at that age. And
Is it some training, or there's implants that they put into you to give you that energy or the electrical force or whatever magnetic force? Is
well, when my mother was pregnant with me, her gynecologist was an asset. And what happened was when she was getting a checkup, the doctor got a call and he went out and met somebody and gave him a brown paper bag with a syringe in it. He came back in and then injected the womb with the syringe, which I believe to be reptilian or draconian DNA. So I am a hybrid. I'm part draconian, and that's where the powers come from.
right? Tom, MK Ultra. What's your
Yeah.
experience with that?
Well, the women that were to be the honeypot wives in my life, I mean, the ones they actually provided,
Right.
Stephanie, who contacted me, whose brother-in-law is Patrick at Warner Brothers Legal. And so what you have is these people saying that they were MK altered from babyhood at University of Berkeley, which is really why they named the university, whereas a lot of these attorneys who threw our situations from. And so you see this happening now. I think a lot of people don't realize that they switch your chemistry, and injections will do this, where I have autism and I wasn't born with autism, but I knew my mind was changing when I was 4 or 5 getting all these injections. And so now I do. I have all the markers basically, except I don't rage. I don't, I don't have the paranoia. But what I do have is the whole thing where I have to wear certain fabric, sleep on certain fabric. I can't stand tags. We basically look at the world as not safe because it's not logical. We're very logical. And so I can speak for a lot of autistic people, I think, saying that the reason we shut off a lot is because we see a very illogical world based on competition and anger and success and rage. We don't do that. We're very logical. We're like Vulcans, if you will. I love the Star Trek background, so I was thinking about this. We're like Vulcans. We're very logical, and we don't connect unless we feel it's worth it and safe. So therapy is not an option for autistic. It's not. Drugs are not an option. It doesn't help us because whenever I've had a therapy, I'm actually counseling the counselors. And so what happened is they'll start telling me their problems. There is no therapy for autism. And if you try to, we'll see right through the person. And if they're cold and static and distant and professional, then we look at professional as fraudulent and stupid and superficial. We won't connect with somebody like that. And we feel like, you're wasting our time. But if somebody is actually good-hearted and cares, we'll connect with them. You do want that. And so our connections are basically lifelong. But anyway, autism, it's really interesting because the screenplay I wrote, it's written by an autistic person. I'm autism. So that's the worst candidate for us to be around are borderline personality disorders. They're the worst. It's like fire and gas. You don't want us around each other. They're all in this, like my sister is that, and it's very selfish, very oriented, very much success. The agencies will employ borderline personality disorders people because they put their feelings in the freezer. They're very narcissistic, and they will often just blow rage, and they'll do anything in order to avoid
these MKUltra wives they would obey everything you told
everything. But they told me, they said that they were put towards me, and if I didn't do what they wanted, they'd be taken away.
You have now, since I've known you, you've always been mild mannered and very logical, and you don't get out of sorts. Now, Spencer, on the other hand, you said that you were, for several years in your life, you was in a fit of rage. Could you tell us about that?
Oh yeah, I walked around with a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah,
large part of my life. I would it was basically where I grew up, primarily an Italian American neighborhood, Jewish American neighborhood, Irish American. I was like one of 4 Asian kids, in the whole city, in my high school of 5,000 kids. So, I got heard. I mean, I heard a lot of racial slurs. I'll just put it that way, and I knew exactly what they meant by it, because in kindergarten, my teacher would berate me with racist remarks all year long, the entire year. Your kind doesn't belong here. You're just an animal. You should be kept in a cage. And this is the conversation my kindergarten teacher had with me. And I looked at her and I said, "Do you know the impact that you're going to have on someone my age for the rest of my life?
right.
Why would you say that to me?" And she goes, "What?" I go, "Yeah, why would you say that to someone my age? To me, I'm only 5 years old. Why
Yeah,
would you say that
I
to
can
me?"
actually understand you because I'm married to a Filipino woman. So, I actually understand all that,
Yeah, that's where it impacted me. So whenever anyone says anything about Asian culture, it doesn't even have to be racist. It's just like, "Hey, I love fried rice." I'm like, "What?" It would just trigger that. I
Yeah.
could hear her voice playing in my head, and I'd just get mad. I'm like, "You're racist." And I just, it's kind of like what the woke culture does today. I was
Yeah.
like, geez, that's how I sounded back then, man. Like, I was just accusing everybody of being a racist.
Yeah. So what you went through with MKUltra and everything left you with a real angry disposition. You were mad
Yeah.
at the world.
If I may, I want to interject
Yeah, go ahead,
something
Tom.
here, and I think it's fascinating. I've never thought of this before until I met you, Spencer. But you are the perfect recruit for an operative. I'm the perfect recruit for like they said, like to create, because I will they thought I was easy to control. They actually tell you what they figure you are. Loyal, easy to control. So they didn't want me to be raging. They wanted me to be
A handler.
just yeah. And then they wanted to groom me for office, and they said I'd be the face of the Christian Coalition. So they wanted the look and they wanted the obedience. In fact, the one time when they sent me back for retraining, they said, I said, "What's this for?" And they said, "To see if you're obedient and punctual." That was it. That's what they wanted.
Interesting.
So what's interesting is we have 2 sides of the coin here. So, and our documentary team's talking about this too, about the layers and strata within the cabal. And so they take our different backgrounds, we're profiled, and at a young age, it's evident, like 5. And that's when I was first being approached. And so you have this thing where they are grafting us into the system where we fit best. So somebody who's like autistic like me would fit perfectly. It's like that Steven Spielberg movie with the Tom Cruise and the Minority Report, and they have this sentience
Right.
that are creating and thinking and seeing things, which I could do. And so that's my role. And your role, I believe, would be trained to be an operative. So it'd be interesting that in the organization itself, if I stepped out of line, you'd be the one that have to take me out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still piecing this whole thing together.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how it works as far as, like, from your point of view, looking at the bigger picture and how the operatives and agents are made and assets.
I've had many explain it to me. And what I did was I used my very nature, which I can't hate. I don't compete. It's not in my makeup. And so what happens is I befriend my handlers, and pretty soon they start telling me things because they like you. And so they start telling me information. I start to ask questions, and it seems harmless. I seem innocuous, so they just tell me. So I've learned so much for the documentary. And then I learned, like you were saying earlier, I learned to record conversations.
Yeah, right.
Boy, do I have some winners for the documentary.
Yeah.
And was even asking. Now, here's one thing I want to throw to you too, is that when I asked the Disney contact, I said, which is with CIA, why is this being done to me and my family and my boys? And they said, because you dared to face us down. So I'm supposed to stay, but at the same time, they said I was their star player on the bench, and that they called it a chess game, but we're on a chessboard, basically a chess game. And they were actually saying I won the chess game, which is very interesting because in my childhood, I was told the same thing. You're winning. I'm like, what am I winning? I'm not into competition. That's not my makeup. I'm not competitive at all. And so, in fact, real quick, in high school or college, we ran this champion meet, and I felt so bad for the runner who was coming in second. I couldn't help it. I threw the race and pulled back and let him win. Coach was furious. But and what came out of my mouth afterwards, well, he really wanted it. To me, it didn't matter.
Right. To explain to everybody, I haven't had these experiences that Tom and Spencer have had. So these two can actually relate to each other. Spencer, I wanted to ask you a question. I know Tom was talking about, the cabal. Now you're saying that Monarch is the umbrella for all these groups. Spencer?
Yes, Monarch is in my research. Now, this stuff, I started researching all of this ever since I did the hypnotic regression because I still wanted answers. Yeah, Monarch is 6,000 years old. It started, nobody really knows if it's Babylon or Egypt, but I do know. I have a past life. I was King Tut's brother, and I was also King Ramses the third son. So 2 lives in Egypt. There's also Gilgamesh, and I used to be an Anunnaki, 500,000 years ago. But the Anunnaki started it. Marduk started it as a continuation of the Egyptian mystery schools. They created the pharaohs to be, they're basically part gray, part Anunnaki, part reptilian, and part human.
Right.
And they left them behind to rule, and then they continued into Babylon. Somewhere along the line, it got corrupted. Is what happened, and I started using it because it's basically like Game of the Thrones. These beings with power want to spy on each other. They're all equal in power, but they all want to have a one up on each other. And it's just like the Game of Thrones, the TV show. They're trying to spy on each other, sabotage each other, start wars, steal resources, control more resources for power. It's just in Buddhism, it's called realm of the jealous gods. They're competing for power and control, and they're just obsessed with power and control. So that's all from a base psychology point of view. That's what it's from. They created these secret societies that they were originally fraternities to create brotherhood and to make man a better man, so he doesn't live out of his animal nature, so he lives out of his spiritual nature. And that's just like fraternal hazing is about. They pick apart your weaknesses. If you're lazy, you're lethargic, you keep making excuses, you have self-doubt, things like that. So they build self-confidence, they build integrity, things like that. They build brotherhood and loyalty, and generosity to create brotherhood. And that was the original, and it came out of that, and they started torturing people. Oh, this is your weakness. And somebody somewhere along the lines turned it into this, well, now we can create alternative personalities. And that's who were the spies for the kings. Essentially, you create a concubine who's also an assassin, and you present her as a gift to say the duke, the king's brother, to infiltrate the king, to get close to the king. And now they can assassinate from within and things like that, and spies, and they provide services to kings and provide assassin services or prostitution, but they're all programmed. They would take soldiers, they'd take people who were prisoners, and then bring them in and hire them and beat them, and then program them with his instructions, and usually through blackmail or through threat.
Right. Yeah.
That's how it originally started.
Yeah, I understand that there was a documentary last night. William Shatner was a narrator, and he was talking about that the Masons actually helped the U.S. get started in their revolution back in 1772 because they knew secrets. They knew how to keep secrets. They had a brotherhood that could work together because they said if any little whisper got out to the King of England, he'd destroy all the colonists right away if he knew that they were planning on attacking and turning against them. So they employed the Masons to come in and teach them how to keep the secrets and how to I guess gel as a brotherhood to keep this tight knit to where the king couldn't find out about it. And Tom, what did you think about the monarch being the umbrella, like Spencer said?
Well, I know that the royalty is that
Yeah.
Bank of England royalty, and what you just hit upon too is loyalty is the big factor. They always talk about loyalty. You
Mhm.
have to have ultimate loyalty to them, and then they let you in what they call secrets. And if you have the secrets, then you're never supposed to turn your back. Otherwise, you die the deaths that my two sons had done. That was supposed to also make me pliable. What they do is they break you, and then they remold you. But some of us can't be broken. We can't. And they're learning that now, that no matter what they do to us, we can't break because of compassion.
It's
So
something
I'm
like,
educating
yeah,
them now.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like what Spencer was saying, that they killed him and brought him back to life. That was to scare him into to believing whatever he has to do, he has to do with loyalty. And the other thing too, he mentioned, I think, the blackmail thing. They find something on you, and then you have to stay with the loyalty factor in order to, I guess, to make them happy.
If you're a youth, they'll employ youth to harm you or kill you. And then the youth are rewarded for doing it. And that's what happened to my son, Aiden. He was attacked. They brought a boy in to the school, this horrible school in California, in Ventura, California, this terrible blonde principal. And so they brought him in just for 3 days to attack Aiden and then removed him quietly and tried to blame
Mm.
Aiden. They always blame the victim.
Yeah.
And so what happened was he showed me the choke marks, everything. And this kid knew how to take him down on the soccer field, just tacked him from behind, took his t-shirt, wrapped around his throat, held him down. If his friend Gio had not stepped in, Aiden would be dead. Same
Wow.
thing happened at the Hilton family, Grandma Leia and Maui, being drowned. So what they
Mm.
do is they employ their own kids while the adult watched, and Aiden remembers the adult watching the kid drowning him and doing nothing.
Wow.
Then they'll come up with an excuse later. She's to witness it to say later, well, whatever. So he's attacked a number of times.
Right.
And
Spencer, did you, have you been through anything like that, threatened, or somebody near to you threatened or hurt?
No, nothing in this world as far as I'll call the present physical reality or normal, everyday reality, besides school fights and, boys being jerks to each other and
Mhm.
nothing out of the ordinary.
interesting, because that's not what this was. This was
Yeah.
definitely an attack, an assault, which they covered up very, very huge. In fact, went after me afterwards and said, crazy, whatever. It was a terrible, terrible thing they did. Then I ended up with two dead sons too. So maybe it's different
Oh my
with your
gosh.
situation, with those of us that are considered assets and creative geniuses in there. They call us that, assets, star players. We're treated differently, I guess. They're going to whip us in line like workhorses.
And sometimes they take out the family member just to,
They
just,
do. And they let you know they did it. In my case, they let me know I did it. They did it twice. And then with the women, what they did with them is just horrendous when you watch them get changed. So it's hard for me to talk about. And when they let you know they're doing it, yeah. So maybe it's different for those, like what Spencer's was being groomed for.
yeah,
But for me,
there's
it's
different groups.
part of life.
Yeah,
Yeah, for me, it's
some
part of life.
groups are very brotherhood like. I mean, I guess they can
Oh, yeah.
actually, function under God, and so, and some of those groups, won't mention all of them because I don't know for sure, but some of those groups, maybe some are very, like you're saying, the cabal, or maybe MK Ultra has some really bad motives.
They often come sugar sweet when they first approach you. It's very sugar sweet, and they offer you the world. And they always say this phrase: "You're one of the elite now. Your life is over as you know it." They use that phrase like it's out of a textbook. You're one of the elite now. Your life is over as you know it. Sophia Stewart told me that. Lauren Holmberg on Maui with the Masons, a CIA operative, told me that. They always tell you that, and then they tell you about facts that they know. So I know all this stuff, and thank God for a documentary team to start bringing this forward, because I've taped a lot of these things.
That's great. We'll talk about that towards
Yeah,
the end of episode
good.
2. We're gonna have 2 episodes on this. Spencer, now you've never been in fear for your life or anything like that. You haven't been. Uh, what was your function? I think you mentioned SSP. You were a super soldier. They used you as a fighter, a soldier. Could you tell us about that, and also the Stargate program that they got you into? Though, so you were more or less in service for them, and but you were actually being, I guess, under sedation, or you didn't know what was really going on. Is
I
that
was in a clone.
yeah? Okay.
Yeah, they put me, the physical body, into a cryostasis and then transfer my consciousness into a clone, and then that's who actually, I do it in a clone. It's not this physical body. But when I'm transferred back into this body, the memories and everything comes with it, and then they beat me up and then sit in a strapped chair and watch the screen with all these patterns and music and inject me with, I think, scopolamine and LSD to reprogram me, and then create the alts. That's how they create
Oh,
the alts,
okay.
and then
I know
code words.
you hit upon something that I'm familiar with, Spencer, and you and Tom talking. I've had these freezing attacks every year at the same time, around August 11th through 14th. I wake up about 3 o'clock and my whole body is frozen, and I'm laying there with my hands across my belly like I'm in a casket or something, like I'm dead, and I'm frozen. I'm shaking the whole bed. What is that? Have you ever had those kind of like freezing sessions in bed? That's when
Multiple
they took
times. Yeah,
really.
multiple times. I'd be pulled out of my body. This was when I was 19. I wanted working for, um, uh, uh, I don't know if I want to say, well, specialty sports. And I believe the owner, named Bill Yago, was one of the people involved in the satanic ritualistic abuse. I believe that when I was 4 years old, I used to call him out on it, actually. And in front of people, it was funny. I would bust his chops. Are you going to go sacrifice somebody, Bill? You go molest some children? Where'd Bill go? He's gone for hours. I went to go molest some children.
Is
Like,
he
yeah, I would bust his chops. He'd be like, "Don't say, stop saying that, Spencer." But it
is
was
he
during
gone
during
now?
that time. Well,
Is
he
he
was that store was a dark lodge. There's something called the Great White Brotherhood and something called the Great Dark Brotherhood. The Anunnaki are playing a game, and it's just a game, and but they're psychopaths, and they're the Anunnaki, and they basically descended down to the fourth dimension and wear dark robes and like to mess with us, and they've contorted the teachings of white magic and turned it into a system of dark magic, even though they think they're doing, these witches think they're practicing white magic, but they're actually practicing black magic. And
right?
do art thy will shall be the whole of the law, and the witches turn it and do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want, and there's no karma, nothing comes back to me. So that's their mentality. And during that time when I'd go to sleep, I'd be pulled out of my body and hear these voices saying, "Well, give us your soul. What's the name of your soul?" And I'd be floating. I'd go out of the top of my head. I remember this one incident where that happened, and I got pulled out of my head. I was going to sleep, and then I realized I'm not in my body, and I hear these voices, "What's the name of your soul?" And I said, "I have no soul. There is no soul. Everything is empty. There's no soul, no mind, no self. So there's no name to give." And they're like confused. And then I realized I was out of my body, and I said, "Well, what if I stop breathing? I'm gonna die." So then I started to panic, and I went back into my body, and I was paralyzed. And I'd had this happen to me before, so I knew what to do. You just wiggle your toes, then wiggle your fingers, then wiggle your feet, and wiggle your hands, and then so you can move your wrists and feet. If you can move your wrists and feet, you can move your knees and elbows. You can move your knees and elbows. You can
Right.
move your legs and arms. So I just begin to move, and then I have to force myself to roll or sit up to get me fully back into my body, and just through sheer willpower.
What about the dimensional time? I mean, they take you probably for maybe an hour Earth time, but when they take you to another dimension, there's a lot different time frame, isn't there?
Yeah, when they took me when I was 12, I was skateboarding to my friend John Tressick's house on the way over there, and they nabbed me in a van, and they uttered some type of phrase which I can't recall, and I just went into fully cooperative mode, like, "Where are we going?" Because I was really resistant, and I didn't remember this until recently, because a classmate of mine the next day said, "Spencer, are you okay?" I'm like, "What do you mean I'm okay? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, yesterday we saw you. You got someone kidnapped you." I'm like, "Someone kidnapped? What are you talking about? Someone kidnapped me? What were you doing yesterday?" I was like, "Yesterday I was on my way to John Tressick's house. We're just skateboarding." I skateboard down that road to go, to go to his house. He goes, yeah, it was down that road. There was basically the road next to her junior high. She said, no, I saw a van come and these men came and grabbed you and you look like you were fighting them. I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And I know all of a sudden a part of me knew, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. No, it's just maybe my friend Jeff and Greg Prohl. I got friends in high school and they drive and they live across the street. Yeah, it was my friend Jeff and Greg Prohl. They picked me up in a car. Are you sure? I thought it was I could have sworn it was a van. No, it was a car. Cutlass Sierra, 1987 Cutlass Sierra. And yeah, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, no, I'm fine. As you can see, no problem. You done? Like that was my attitude,
Yeah.
But that, like, recalling that, I remember when they took me in, they uttered this phrase, and then all of a sudden I just went into this alt mode. And so long story short, they did an operation on my liver, and then they took me, I don't know where I was. I think they first took me to what is it, McGuire Air Force Base, and then from there somewhere underground.
Who
And I
was
remember
doing all this? Were there ETs involved? You said something about a gray
this
code?
was a certain government agency that I won't name, but guys in white coats walked me to this portal. I mean, it was all this metal frame technology, but in the middle was this plasma, this wall of like a big doorway of plasma that was just buzzing. And I was like, what are you, like, what the hell is that? I don't want to go in there. Like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to, like, what am I going to be fried alive or something? I don't know what was going on.
Right.
And they said, no, it's okay. Go ahead. So went through the portal, came out on the moon, in a base in the moon. And on the moon, there were Greys, there were military personnel, and reptilians there. And
So,
that's when
so
they,
you're thinking that maybe these humans were like back engineered or back trained, let's call it, by the ETs in order to do all this stuff, the portals, and also the training to take souls out of a body and travel. Were the reptilians taking your soul when you were cold? Were they the ones doing this? Or
what do you mean when I was cold?
when you got cold and you've traveled out of your body?
Oh, when I was sleeping?
Yes.
No, they were, it was Anunnaki Dark Brotherhood.
Oh, well, they're human like then.
His name is Zoran. He claims to have been a druid. He has his wife, his daughter, and his mother, who are three succubi spirits. They've been with me my whole life. Apparently, these spirits claim that in a past life I was a pilgrim and I burned them, and I was the last person to throw the log on the fire. So they're vindictive. I'll just put it that way. They're out for vengeance, and they had another life where they died in the plague. They shared this with me, and but they've been with me for several lifetimes.
Wow, no wonder they're after you. You got all this in you,
Yeah.
Janae. Tom, I don't remember you telling me. I know you said you had an ET experience at one time, but in this cabal, are they run by ETs also, Tom?
Well, this is so interesting about tonight is that it's like two different worlds here.
Right.
Mine is CIA, FBI, Disney, Cabal, Warner Brothers, religious right. I'm bread and butter down to earth on what's happening, where I've got the card from the FBI. Please extend every courtesy. What's happened to my sons, what's happened to my work. And what I'm curious for Spencer is, what are they asking of you? Because when they spend this money and time grooming me and giving me all this stuff that I have to show, they're telling me what they want from me. They're telling me why they're doing it. So if they're going to spend all this time on you, they're going to tell you why. Why? Because if they're going to toy with you like a cat, they're going to get tired of that. There's got to be some reason to spend, unless we're in two different worlds here, because I'm talking about the cabal, where
Right.
they have invested in me and call me their asset, and they've employed me to be the face of this and to be brought in for this, and they supply wives. My story's, it's a living nightmare, and that's why I'm trying to make a difference to people on the earth and
Right.
what's going on. But I'm hearing you talk, and one thing I want you to tell me is, what are they asking of you? If they spend their resources on you and they're going to take all this time with you, they're not just going to haul you off and play cat and mouse. There's going to be a reason, and they're going to let you know what the reason is, which they don't do me all the time. And that way I can adapt to what's going on. And it's been at great cost.
That's
So
why
That's a great question.
Do they ever
It's
tell you
something I
what they're
wanted
looking
to know
for?
too.
Yeah. What do they tell you? Because I don't think they just torture you. What are they asking you to be? What are they grooming you to be? Because my mind's, as the condition I have, is trying to fill it in, and I
Yeah,
don't want to fill it in without hearing it from you.
I got it. I get it. I get it.
But
So when I took me to the moon, I didn't know what the heck this was for. They didn't tell me anything. They put me into a chamber. All of a sudden, I wake up in another body, in a 10, 12 foot tall body that's a half cyborg, and they take me to Mars to train me. I don't know why they did it. They I didn't ask. I just did what I was told. I was extremely obedient.
Yeah,
That's all I remember being, just
what were your
completely
all right?
subservient and obedient. I didn't ask any questions.
What
I
were your
just did what I was
tasks?
told.
What were your tasks then? What were your? I
So
like.
Mars, they were training me to fight. I specialized because at 8 years old, they took me. At 7, they groomed me to be a sex kitten. At 8, they took me to some basic training and out of God knows where. I don't know if it was virtual reality or if it was real. To this day, I still don't know. But I just remember being in this boot camp, base camp, playing war with other kids and learning how to fight and knife fighting. So I think that was prep work for the super soldier. And 12 was like, okay, let's see if this being can survive in a super soldier. This is just me putting it together. They didn't tell this
Sure,
to me. I'm
sure.
just trying to, like, why would they do this to me? Because I'm usually, people that I hear stories from are like children of Nazis that came to the country, and
Mhm.
their grandfather was a Nazi, and then it's in the family or something. Like, well, I'm Chinese. I don't, I have no family heritage to Germany or any of these, Bush families or whatever. I don't know, why my family was picked. Um, except that 5 generations ago, my grandmother, great 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 grandmother, encountered a group of beings. I don't know if they're ET or human, whom she made a contract with. She was wanted vengeance on somebody. I don't know the full story. They gave her some type of poison, and she was going to assassinate the person, and then she had a change of heart, and she didn't carry out her vengeance. She forgave the person and became a good being. And the people or beings that she made a contract with said, since you didn't honor your contract, we are going to haunt your children and their children and their children and their children and their children and every generation after, to get them to hate you. And we will do that. And that's how my family got involved. So I believe it's just as a result of that contract. So there must have been some ETs, because it was um the East Wind Trading Company tried to take over China, and we know who they're part of. So I don't know if it was those guys, or if it was ETs, if it was a reptilian, if it was a gray. I also know that my participation is, um well, I have hybrid children with the Greys, the Calypsi Greys, to be specific, from Zeta Reticuli. They've taken all of America, so that's another participation, and they are involved in this as well. The Super Soldier program, from what I've learned, the Anunnaki have a deal with the Draconian Empire, because basically this solar system belongs to the Draconian Empire. And when the Anunnaki came here, they took over Earth, and were at war with the Anunnaki. That's when I was an Anunnaki, when we first came here 500,000 years ago. So they basically um, took it from the Dracos, and the Dracos say, no, this is our planet. We were here first. So they have a deal to sell 10% of 10% of Earth's resources, which is humanity,
Mhm.
to the Dracos. And that's what this is about. So from what I understand, the Dracos want to create a super soldier race to take over the planet, and then they're going to take over the planet. That's the end game, from what I understand. Um, I don't know why. I've talked to other people that were in the program with me that I remember. It was kind of weird to, like, hey, how you doing? Like, been a little while, remember the time? It's just a strange thing to rehash memories with someone that was a clone on the moon fighting gladiator battles. That's all we did, was fight gladiator battles for the Nazis, for the Germans.
You have that memory that it never leaves you, but you don't have all the memory, right?
I just remember figuring out how to beat the Dracos.
Mm.
I remember being beaten by a reptilian at first. My gut was torn open, and they put me in a regen tank, and then they regenerated me. And through fighting, I think they wanted to learn how to defeat the Dracos. And I figured out how to defeat them. So all of the psionic training, all of the boot camp training, helped me as a super soldier clone in that, because I was also another clone in a different part of my life. In that particular time frame, I understood that because the Dracos are extremely psychic. They will be 5 steps ahead of you in a fight. They will read all of your moves before you even do it. So when you do it, they're already in a position to kill you. You literally move into their attack, and that's how they were able to defeat so many of us. So what happened was, as I started to realize this being is reading my mind. It's reading, and I started to wait. I'm psychic. I realized even in that cyborg clone, I'm like, I realized, wait a second, this being is reading my mind, and I can read its mind. So I started reading its mind, reading my mind, and I started giving it false information telepathically, giving it my moves, and then I would read its response in its thoughts before we would actually physically move. And all this took place like in a second, you know. So when I figured out, okay, he's going to do this when I move here, so what I'm going to do is lead him into my attack. So that's how I figured out how to beat them. He would be in an attack and I would be in a defense. And the Draco was like, how are you figuring out what I'm doing? And I'd move here and he'd be already there before I got there, already attack, and I'd be defending his attack. And it was kind of like Super Saiyan, kind of like, you know, moving around. We'd move very fast. And then eventually I knew what he was going to do. So I would move into an attack to counter his attack. And that's how I learned how to defeat them.
So your long contract, and let's go back to the contract because I want to bring Tom in on this too. Your long contract with your grandmother, was that a written contract or a blood contract? And if it was probably with the ETs, because the ETs said they'd be haunting generation after
Yeah,
generation. Well, ETs live longer than we do.
exactly.
Yeah, so they can come back at any time within the next 200-300 years and be fine with all that. Uh, was it a written contract or a blood contract? Then I'm asking.
I don't know. I
Okay,
don't know.
Tom, did you remember? I mean, you probably do. Did they have you on a written contract or a blood contract?
Written and also spoken. So it'd be spoken contracts. They kept trying to do written ones all the time with their contacts. Spielberg was involved in that with this guy named what was his name? Agamemnon. And so what they had, like, these different people would approach me with these contracts, which basically meant all my work is theirs. They kept doing that
Yeah.
Because they saw me as a gifted genius, so they wanted my work, and that was the main thing for them. My intellectual property work would make an influence in the world and that kind of stuff. And so it'd be verbal contracts and written contracts, and you had to watch that. But one thing I wanted to ask Spencer too, I don't mean to drill into it, but I just wanted to say, I want to get this understood too. My battle was to keep my character intact through all this, and especially with my condition. What do you feel you lost in the process you went through, and how were you changed? And that's one.
Mm-hmm.
The other question is, oh God, what was the other question? Because that one's really pervading my mind, is the idea of what you
I know
feel
they
you
paid
lost.
Tom. I know they paid you, but I don't know about Spencer. Was he ever paid? That might be.
I was never paid. No.
No.
Yeah, I was employed.
Yeah.
Basically, they kept offering. Well, they offered easy life rewards, home, wife, you name it. They provided all. And I think the reason my sons were killed too, not just to keep me in line, they want to control the bloodlines in my situation. But I am interested to see what you feel you lost.
Right.
Like, did you lose a feeling of compassion? Did you lose what your core person was before they started working on you? Know, you're very young, but we identify usually at 5, a lot of our core, who we are.
Yeah,
So,
no, I hear what you're saying. I did soul retrieval. I had to get my soul back, soul fragments, through with the shamanic journey. So I lost my soul. I lost my true personality. I lost my love for people. I lost my sense of happiness, pure, just human happiness. When I was in 5th grade, I remember my friend Adam Gitkin and Jason Gitkin, they're twins. They invited me over. They were so happy. I couldn't comprehend, like, how are they that happy? How could you be happy? And it scared me. So the friendship eventually turned into a phone call, and I said, you guys are so happy. I don't believe you're that happy. I don't believe you can be that happy. I don't think you're real. And they said, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I understand if you don't feel safe with us, that's fine. And they were very cool about it. They didn't throw any drama, but I remember that conversation. And why did I think that? That's what I lost. I could not relate to people.
Right.
I lost all sense of empathy
Interesting.
and became
So,
very cold and calculated.
mm,
I figure out people's weaknesses very quickly in
okay.
case I have to battle them physically or just in conversation psychologically. I see the world like that. Yeah, I
Interesting.
lost my humanity.
Well,
I
there you
think,
go.
yeah,
And
Tom,
you're asked, I was going to ask this one more thing too, is what did they point out was your asset qualities? What was the traits you had that they wanted? Like they tell me all the time, they'll say, we want you to do this, and we see this in you, we know you can do this, and we see you this, and they'll compliment you on your abilities and strengths that may be unique.
Yeah, I was good with psychic killing, remote viewing, as well as sword fighting and sniper.
Mm,
so
okay.
he was a warrior.
He was a
Sniper as
warrior,
well.
and
Yeah,
I'm a
sniper
creative.
and yeah,
Yeah. I see
that's
here
what they.
categorizing. People are categorized, and then they're set to be that, almost like the peg in this round hole, and the other one in the square hole. And it's like
Well,
we're shaped to do that.
well, when I was 19, I think it was 1994, 1995. I think it was 1994 when I turned 20. They brought me in to be a handler. They trained me how to be a handler.
Wow.
And that handler personality came out, and that's when I started picking up girls and trying to do the sex magic thing and try to bring people in. I didn't even know I was trying to bring people in. I just talked to them about things, and my spirit guide, he's trying to bring them in. But like, what am I bringing them to? I don't even know what I'm bringing them into. I'm just how you're talking to me. It's like I talk to people and get to know people and be very calm, cool, and caring and be their friend and but I had this agenda, I remember.
So it's
So
like, yeah,
yeah, different stages, but that's
this
the
is so
last time they
wild.
took me.
Well, what Dave has done is brought the lion and the lamb,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah,
like that's we were fed, grazed, and groomed to be.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like you were a warrior, and after your warrior experience, they made you a recruiter in a way.
Well, when I was 12, it was Dark Fleet, and then when I was 16, it was what's called Solar Warden. Who are they in this community? They call them the White Caps. They're the good guys, and then they made me infiltrate the Dark Fleet. That was the Project Stargate. They brought me to all different timelines and different planets. I've been to planet Serpa. I've met the extraterrestrials. I've made contact. I I don't know what the long game is. I don't even think they know what the long game is. They're just acting out these desires for power and control. It is a competition to these ETs, and we're the prize because of our genetics.
Mhm.
Humanity was created by 22 extraterrestrial species, and some of these extraterrestrials, like the Anunnaki and the Calypsi Greys, they're running out of genetic stock. The Calypsi, because they've cloned themselves for so long, they cannot reproduce themselves. So that's why they're creating the hybridization program, and they're mixing human DNA with Calypsi DNA because they cannot. There's a government out there that governs who can step foot on Earth, and no ET race is allowed to step foot on Earth because humanity has to be given a chance to evolve without any interference. The Greys want to take over the Earth. The Dracos want the Earth. The Anunnaki want the Earth. So how the Greys are doing it is they're creating a hybridization program, and they're going to project their consciousness into these hybrids, and then say, "Well, we're part human, so we have a right to walk on Earth." But what they're really doing is preventing the ascension of humanity.
Okay, we're closing in on episode 1 for an hour, and then we're going to be back with episode 2. I'll probably put that 2-3 days after the first episode. You're listening to Dave and Tom show. Dave Emmons, Tom Althouse, my co-host, and our special guest Spencer Hau, and he's telling us all about MKUltra and his background with all this super soldier thing. And he had a Draco and a reptilian as I guess, as a handler, and we're going to have episode 2 after this. I mean, 2 or 3 days after I put this out. So, Spencer Howell, thank you for this show, and goodbye for now. We'll be right back. Bye bye. Tom, thank you, brother.
Thanks, Dave.